how's it going, guys? Welcome to a brand new trailer breakdown for The Batman, and I honestly want to say that this is probably the most awe-striking trailer we've got yet. Now, it's not necessarily maybe as long as the other trailers we've got, but in terms of like throwing everything at the wall, in terms of like what this movie has to offer and just seeing what sticks with any fan out there who watches this trailer, they did that. They really did that. I really didn't expect to be making this video because I knew that a trailer was coming by the end of the year, because we learned information that they were putting a new trailer into cinemas to air, I believe, New Year's Eve or something, but I didn't expect them to upload it today on the internet, so I am obligated to make this. I was just chilling, playing some Xbox, taking some, I feel like, well-deserved time off, but nope, I cannot not make this video. If you could maybe consider leaving a like, that would feel like quite a bit of a tip, if you will. So at the beginning, the trailer opens up with the Batmobile getting fired up. My god, I cannot wait to see this machine in action. It looks incredible. And among this, we have the mayoral candidate, Bella Real. Is that the way to pronounce that? It has a little accenty thing on the A. It's not Bella Real, but Bella Real. But either way, I love this because this trailer gives us, as I said, it's like lots of different flavors of paint throwing out the wall of this movie. It gives us the kind of Bruce Wayne public side, because he's a bit of a recluse in this movie, to the Batman side, to his relationship with Selina Kyle. There's just a lot here. So I love the fact that they gave us some footage of the mayoral candidate, Bella Real, and I believe she is probably one of the only good eggs in Gotham, really trying to assert change. And I like that she's, funnily enough, going right up to the man himself, wanting him to assert change, asking the very lines of how Bruce Wayne should be doing more for the city, and that she states that the Wayne family has a history of philanthropy, but as far as she can tell, he's not doing anything. And I love how they put that little laugh from Pattinson's Bruce just right after that, because it couldn't be like, yeah, I'm kind of going out every night. I've become a literal recluse, other than going out to the mayor's funeral. You probably haven't even seen me in the past couple of years. So he is going out and doing something, but obviously nobody knows that this man is Batman, and it just gives us a little bit of a flavor for a character that we haven't seen in any other trailer, which also makes me possibly excited for a scene between her and Batman, because she won't know that it's the same guy. You get it, you know how that works. Back onto the Batmobile chase, and you can see that this is a part of the Penguin chase scene in the movie, and where he's causing a bunch of destruction while he's trying to get away. We saw in the other trailer where he's like, haha, I got you, he's saying like he got the Batman, but then the Batman bursts out the flames like, no you didn't, mate. This is like more of a longer sequence of that, and I love these little angles we get of Bruce, just really trying and desperately trying to get to him, and he even almost has a few close calls, like he has to quickly turn right before he hits that other car, and the action here just in of itself, just like even separate from fight choreography, we're talking like Batmobile action looks great, with Batman pulling this somewhat handbrake turn, and just as he does, you see Penguin's car, right as like the turn stops, flip and fly over into the frame, doing a bunch of barrel rolls, of which, as we know in the other trailer, Batman gets out, approaches him, and Oz is just there upside down, fearing for his life. I can't wait for that moment. I do feel like it's going to be a very heavy warning. Obviously, he's not going to hurt Penguin too much, and I feel like in some of the other trailers, in where he's got some injuries on his face, is him looking out the window in Gotham City after kind of just having that reckoning with the Bat. Like, maybe it's his job on behalf of Batman to send a message to the other mobsters, possibly Carmine Falcone and whoever else, like, I've just done this to you. You can't run away from me. Spread the message. And if you've got somebody who's like a mid-level mobster at this point of where Penguin is at in the time of setting of the film, he could probably get that message to the right people. And also, he's firsthand encountered a very scary moment with the Batman, so no one else is really better than Oswald to send that message to the higher-ups. Throughout the trailer, we get various shots of Drifter Bruce. This one at the beginning is a very brief one of him walking throughout Gotham City. Most of this movie will be Batman and lots of Drifter Bruce rather than just Bruce Wayne, because at this point, long story short, if you're new here, Bruce Wayne, he hasn't really established this duality to himself, but evidently, or at least it's obvious to me, that is a part of the arc of the trilogy. If not, a big part of that bridge will be crossed by the end of this movie, him realizing how he does need to stop turning down Wayne Enterprise meetings, board meetings, this, that, and the other. He will realize that it is handy to also go out as Bruce, but at this point in time, he is just mainly Batman. So just to let you know, like, we're gonna get a lot of these drifter shots, very Batman Year One, him walking it with his hoodie, and he's just kind of living and breathing in the streets of Gotham City. And we've seen this in other trailers, for example, when Commissioner Pete Savage was doing a press release, probably about the mayor's death or something or another, and we see that Bruce is in his drifter mode on the motorbike, watching on, and obviously if he was there as Bruce Wayne, those cameras would turn around and be like, Bruce Wayne is here, Bruce Wayne is here, so you get the idea. We then hear Jim Gordon say to Batman, the Riddler, he's asking for you. And as Batman is in on the scene of this crime here, there is a clue left behind, very obviously, it's etched into the floor, and what is carved out is what I believe to be a somewhat rough map of Gotham City, with at the very heart of Gotham City a message displaying a real change. Now I'm wondering if that's a clue to allude to maybe Riddler might be wanting to go after Bella Real, who I believe one of her slogans or messages for her mayoral campaign is a real change in Gotham City, but I don't think he would go after her necessarily, because I'm just getting vibes that she isn't like going to be corrupt or anything, but maybe he's mocking the fact that there is no real change in Gotham. A lot of Riddler's drive is that change has been promised before, even by the Waynes, which we're about to get into, which is how you're a part of this too, to Bruce, even though he doesn't quite realize it at some point in the movie, but he will have that revelation. I'm kind of going on a bit of a tangent right now, but long story short, Riddler, he's lived a bit of a cruel life in the cesspool experience of Gotham. So this is why he's doing all of this in the first place. So he probably doesn't believe that a real change is coming to Gotham. But either way, lots of people do, even though I believe Matt Reeves hasn't actually specifically cited Seven as an influence, just these clues and the way they're displayed like this does remind me of the way the killer in Seven displayed his clues. But also, this appears to be in the same location as where in my coverage of the Japanese trailer that we didn't get so long ago, so I do recommend checking that out, because there's scenes in that trailer that we didn't even get in this trailer. But getting back on point, those scenes in the Japanese international trailer, there were a bunch of other clues in this location or apartment, showing Edward Nashton looking over at the Waynes. And in this shot of Batman and the cop looking down on the carving in the floor, you can see that there's somewhat this other trap-esque like mask thing in the upper center corner, and just other clues and posters just darted everywhere. So I just feel like this is another room of that same location we saw of the board of where there was a bunch of photos in the Japanese trailer where we literally saw Thomas and Martha Wayne, mini Bruce Wayne, mini Edward Nashton, and this all links to the Waynes and how Wayne Manor was turned into an orphanage, and how Riddler was likely raised, or at least in his orphan younger days, raised in Gotham Orphanage / Wayne Manor. We're gonna get to that. Now, this is when we have a little bit of a moment between Alfred and Bruce, where in the Batcave, Alfred says to him, the killer left this for Batman. Why is he writing to you? Now, obviously, this is just very preliminary talks with Bruce and Alfred. Like, you know, it's probably known that obviously this has got to a point, and we're going to read out a new synopsis, so stay tuned for that, which gives even more away of where we have Batman, you know, basically getting onto this case because it's getting past the GCPD's control. That's probably why they even allowed this vigilante to come on the crime scene. But obviously it's now got Alfred's attention, because it's like, okay, this is, you know, just more than you going after mobsters and stuff in the street. Why is this killer writing to you? And this will get into the deeper hit secret that Alfred is keeping. We were right about that on the channel, guys. This is when the Riddler with a no caller ID rings up Bruce or the Batman. Why it's Batman? Because we can literally see Batman in the selfie corner. Just imagine, I feel like this is a meme template. We see like Batman in the preview of the selfie camera. I just feel like you can insert any kind of photo where the Riddler is there. And even though we know that Riddler seems to know Batman's identity in the movie, it could be possible that the Riddler leaves a phone behind for Batman, perhaps after the cathedral scene, or maybe some other scene on the crime scene of the mayor's death, so that they can have a more direct contact whenever the Riddler chooses. On the Riddler side of what his camera is projecting on the phone, we can see the Riddler insignia, and we also hear a voice of the Riddler breathing initially and saying that you came. First of all, I believe that this audio is clipped over here and actually probably from a different part of the movie, and whatever he's about to say on the phone is, you know, just something else within the movie. This is a very common thing in trailers. Like, even though it makes sense using that audio line of saying you came over the phone, just always bear in mind that, yes, it fits that, but that's probably not actually what he's saying in that very moment of that very seen in this trailer. But one other thing, just fun little tidbit, I love the attention to detail. That little breathing sound effect. I've watched a lot of documentaries on the Zodiac Killer, and when he was on the line of a phone, it's been described by witnesses or like, you know, operators of like the 911 phone call lines that there was very eerie breathing before like talking just like this. Even if it was kind of unintentional, just through holding the phone up so close, it's like that kind of almost escape of air that happens. But obviously when you're pertaining that to a creepy character, it just makes it that much more eerie. And yet again, as we know, Riddler's design and kind of serial killer ways are very much so inspired from that of the design of the Zodiac Killer. You know, kind of a bag over the head, the insignia, the glasses. It's obviously not beat for beat Zodiac Killer, nor will he be in this movie. It's going to be more than just a serial killer. It will be very Riddler at the same time, as Paul Dano stated in the Empire magazine. He didn't want to just literally base it off of the Zodiac Killer, but obviously there will also be many details just like this to kind of just, well, yeah, add that little bit of attention to detail. But we see that there's another message left behind for the Batman, literally saying so, but more in the shape of a present here that Bruce seems to be unwrapping. Now, I think that what this could be is a bunch of photos. We've seen in other trailers there's a lot of printout, like Polaroid-esque photos that the Riddler is giving to Batman for clues, which leads to that kind of visual mapping that Bruce has done to spray paint on the floor. Like, he seems to be a bit more of a visual learner or presenter, if you will. So I think this could be the very present and where a lot of clues left by the Riddler to point to other parts that Batman needs to figure out will be given to Bruce. This is where we hear Zoe Kravitz, Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, saying that Riddler's latest, it's all about the Waynes. Again, heavily emphasizing, and that was just a very brief few words teasing that the Riddler is pointing out things to Batman or the public or whatever beyond just killing the corrupt elite like the mayor, district attorney, likely Commissioner Pete Savage, etc., etc. That also the Waynes are involved in this, but also he kind of low-key wants to point that out to Bruce because he isn't quite aware his own family's ties to all of this mess in Gotham City. And then that's when we get a shot of Bruce shirtless with muscles. I just kind of want to like rub this in the faces of people who are like, oh, stick figure. Like, oh, dude, just look, you do realize there's multiple iterations of Batman. Not every single one needs to be like henched Affleck brick house built. There's many athletic yet muscle-toned cut Batmans or Batmen out there, if you will. And clearly looking at Pattinson here, to all those people like, oh, it didn't even work out, and couldn't see beyond the sarcasm of those jokes. Sorry, I'm getting off on one right now, but yeah, I just feel like, I wish people had a bit more common sense. This is where we cut to Catwoman's face, finishing off that last sentence, saying that if we don't stand up, then no one will. Which is when we then cut to a different scene in the movie, joined with this, in where all of Selina's strays go up to Batman's boots and start meowing and purring, of which I think is very sweet. Don't want to get too in detail here, but you could argue it's like, oh, they like him, and it kind of speaks to the larger, she likes him thing, but obviously it's just meant to be very face value, cute. And he's just like, you got a lot of cats. And she replies, she's got a thing about strays. This is interesting. We know that she lets lots of strays in. That's Catwoman and Selina as a character anyway, but she also, Zoe Kravitz herself, got into some details about why does she take in so many strays. What interested me about that is the psychology, like what's behind Selina doing that as a human. So yeah, I do recommend checking out Empire's article or my coverage in a video the other day. Obviously, this is at some point of the movie in where Batman and Catwoman haven't just interacted in the mayor's office or the mayor's room in where Riddler killed him, where they first fight. This is sometime into it, and where she seems to be comfortable enough to invite him back to her apartment. But speaking of that first interaction, this is when I believe we see what I believe is the first interaction, because I don't believe there would be such a combative moment with them when they're already working together later on in the movie. So I do believe that this is their first fight, and that is yet again in the mayor's office. You cross-reference this with scenes in the other trailers. It's when she basically breaks in after the crime scene of where the mayor is recovered, his body's recovered, and she seems to be breaking into the safe, very Catwoman-like, yet Batman's clearly probably waiting there to see if the murderer revisits the crime scene, yet bumps into Catwoman. They exchange a bit of a fight, but this fight swing somewhat lands Catwoman down on the table in this extended look at it, just adding to a little bit of that chemistry, shall we say, as they're face to face in this moment. And the fight seems to pause. I like also the little, again, attention to detail of the taunt or kind of mini barky snark that Catwoman does there. She kind of like bites up, and this really reminds me of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. Or just, you know, obviously Catwoman in general, but she's not as animalistic as what Michelle Pfeiffer seemed to do back in the day, but like, this was a little nod to that. Up next, we hear Selina say, "The bat and the cat. It's got a nice ring." Now, I do think that it will be going along that route. Like, it is a nice ring. They're working together. We see them on the motorbikes together. I wonder where they're going. I did originally think, could that be them going to an entrance to the Batcave, which is Wayne Terminus, a subway terminal that Bruce has basically abandoned one that he's retrofitted into a Batcave. Who knows really where they're heading on the motorbikes. But the point is, they are getting along. They are working together, but we know it's destined to kind of, they're going to rub each other up the wrong way, so to speak. It's inevitable. It's kind of the Bat-Cat relationship until, I don't know, maybe it will never end, because sometimes they have that flirtatious chemistry for years and years and years, and Selina still seems to do something that pisses Batman off, or vice versa. You know, it always happens, so I do expect that to happen at some point towards the end of this movie, even if their working relationship in stopping Riddler, if nobody else stands up, no one will, or whatever she said, will kind of go awry at some point. Just a little side note there. Up next, though, is very interesting, and I can't wait for this part in the movie to unfold. We hear Alfred then say in the Batcave with a picture of Selina in disguise on the Bat monitors saying, "A new friend of yours?" Now, it seems that at this part of the movie, Bruce is keeping a few tabs on Catwoman. Of course he would, especially with some of the information we've learned about the context of their history, believe it or not. And this isn't the first time we've seen Selina wear a wig in the movie in a similar get-up to this, as in the main trailer we saw her in the club sporting a slightly different wig. So here she's likely infiltrating some place, and this is one of her go-to disguises. As we know, Catwoman doesn't always go out in the Catwoman suit, albeit in this movie she's got a very prototype suit with like the balaclava, but the two pointy bits here symbolizing what the ears will later look like one day when maybe Bruce helps her out with a better suit in the second movie. Who knows when that will come in. But obviously she will be going around, whether it's through thieving in like a master of disguise kind of way, and you could connect this blonde wig to that moment in the trailer later, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and where she shoots something or someone. I also really like this perspective of the Batcave we get, as you can spot this doorway in the background that has a very decorated Wayne emblem or somewhat archway to it. Again, this is an abandoned subway that is Wayne Terminus, so it's like very Wayne, you know, inspired. Bruce then responds to Alfred saying, "New friend of yours? Not so sure." And building off of that line, on the rooftop scene, of which Empire teased to us in the image the other day, except they were standing a bit further apart, instead of standing further apart, well, now it looks like they're so close together that they could almost kiss, and who knows, maybe they do. Bruce is obviously a sucker for Selina, knows her real identity, all while she doesn't really know his. Again, speaking to the larger context of this all, we have got a slightly updated synopsis of the movie, which, yeah, gives a little bit more clarity, which I didn't necessarily expect. So, Gotham is being hit by a gruesome series of crimes that the police have long been unable to cope with. Bruce Wayne, aka the Batman, does what he can, but also reaches his limits. The Penguin has a hand in it, but he is only one in the all-encompassing swamp of the city. The appearance of his childhood friend, Selina Kyle, alias Catwoman, creates additional emotional confusion in the angry fighter for justice. So, childhood friends? What? That is super interesting, and could also help explain why maybe, like, Bruce is protective of Selina. I mean, he could just like her anyway, and that's why he's doing that, but he doesn't quite want her to know his identity, of which he tries to ask him who's under the mask later on in the trailer. That definitely adds an interesting layer to it, and also, you know, whether they do the reveal in this movie of his identity to her, or if they save that for the second movie, it will be a bit more like, how could you not tell me that it was you, Bruce, this whole time? Maybe she will actually take that the wrong way. I can imagine this going down a billion different kind of spider webs. But just to connect those scenes at the end of the trailer to now, since we're talking about so much Catwoman, we do see at those final scenes that she asks, "Who are you under there? What are you hiding?" Again, just showing that Bruce knows full well who she is and even cares about her, but she just doesn't know him. We even get a line from Bruce later on in the trailer in where he says, "Stop, Selina, like, don't throw your life away." And she says, "Don't worry, honey, I've got 9 of them," before jumping off the building. That same shot we've seen in other trailers. Notice how Gordon seems to be like grabbing onto Batman there. It does make me think if he let his guard down and Selina kind of knocked him out. I don't know, it just looks like he's trying to stop him from falling off the building. Who knows? Who knows there? But I love all of this Bat and Cat featurette too. Well, the Bat and Cat trailer. We also get some bonus shots towards the end of the trailer of Selina fighting some thugs in this location. Now, this could be near Oswald Cobblepot's offices, but what I'm wanting to know is who she's firing this gun at when she's in her long blonde hair wig. Now, I am wondering, I just want to throw it out there, I'm not saying Falcone is going to die, but we do know that she has been arm in arm with Falcone in filming whilst going to attend the mayor's funeral. We know that he has the 3 scratches on his face, which is true to the comics in where she's done that to him. So I'm wondering if this will be a confrontation in the movie where she actually kills him. Who knows? This is the interesting thing that obviously that Bruce or Batman doesn't want Selina to get into, because she does sometimes cross a certain line that Bruce doesn't cross. So maybe he didn't want her to get into this, and she actually does do something that kind of like pushes her even further away from where Bruce didn't even want her to go. If it does turn out that, you know, maybe she does indeed kill someone like Falcone, because you could argue that Falcone's been treating her, depending on their relationship in the movie, pretty badly, or maybe some of the things that she's done for him, who knows, but it could be that kind of vibe. But I would love your theories down in the comments as to what you think is going on in this moment you're seeing on screen. Now up next, we get a shot of the Riddler in what seems to be this big location, and where from a lot of the trailers combined seems to be a place in where the big battle or climax of the movie might go down. I don't want to necessarily call it the last battle or whatever, but it is the same location in where Selina is reacting to Bruce in the other trailer, punching the crap out of the Riddler, or should I say whom we believe to be the Riddler, because the reason why that theory stands is, as made very clear in this trailer, a lot of the Riddler's henchmen there are dressed exactly like him, so any one of them could be the Riddler, to possibly lead up to that moment where Bruce is just punching, you see Selina's face, and then eventually he's horrified to learn that it's a trick, and it could be indeed somebody innocent under there. But maybe it is the Riddler and he actually found the right one, and that's why he's going ham. But whatever way you look at it, Selina's kind of looking at the beast that is Batman in that moment, and it shakes her a little bit to the core. But regardless, this location is a very pivotal part of the movie. Moving on, he says, "I'm just trying to unmask the truth about this cesspool we call a city." In between this line from the Riddler, we get clues left behind as we see Detective Batman. Heavy emphasis on the detective there, as we are getting a very detective-based Batman in this movie, use an ultraviolet light to reveal the Riddler insignia. As the Riddler speaks the word city from that line we just mentioned, it then gives us this incredible look at Gotham City's skyline and the mood and the depth to this city, with Reeves just filming from multiple locations, multiple cities around the world to create this city that might be familiar to you in certain areas, but combined, it forges this completely new one. And I love that vision, and I love that scope and combination that just forms this breathtaking Gotham City. It's just, I really, really like this. Also notice that one of the ads on the screen says "Stop the Drops." Now, long story short, if you don't know what the drops are, it's this drug that's going around in Gotham, and it's also got a logo of what many have perceived to be a Joker smile, or whether it's a Scarecrow kind of early version hood, or a red hood, yet again pertaining to Joker. It's regardless this drug or kind of like inhalant that people are getting addicted to, and it could be like a little Easter egg for something larger or one of the Rogues Gallery members. A lot of people lean towards Mad Hatter maybe, but regardless, it's just another nice detail that is being put out by the Gotham Health Department to kind of like, are you addicted to drops? Stop drops today, like phone this number for help. Now in this moment where Bruce is in the car, I believe this is him on his way to the cathedral, which is the mayor's funeral at that part in the movie, and he notices in the crowd behind the barricades that there's people holding up the Riddler insignia, showing showing their support for him. And this kind of strikes Bruce, because at first he might be like, wait, what? Why? But there is a lot of reason to it, because regardless, his face here is more of a reaction to how problematic it is that some citizens might agree with what the Riddler is doing. Now, the thing I find very interesting about this is that obviously what the Riddler is doing is pretty bad, it's pretty illegal, and pretty murderous. However, his message is probably resonating with a lot of Gothamites out there. I mean, at the end of the day, Gotham is a bit of a cesspool, as the Riddler says, and it's allowed itself to breed the cesspool that it is through whether that's the corruption to the mob, all kinds of things there. And the Riddler has felt as though that his life has also been one big cruel riddle, also growing up through the Gotham orphanage and is experiencing the worst of the city's lies, hence the no more lies thing with the mayor, etc., corrupt police commissioner, you name it. And this is how he has dealt with his trauma, by doing something about it, albeit, which I love about the parallels in this movie between the characters, in a different way to how Bruce has dealt with his trauma in becoming Batman. He's also fighting the corruption, the crime. But at the end of the day, the Riddler's methods, you could argue, in a questionable way, are more direct and effective than technically what Batman is doing. Just in the sense of Batman isn't going around literally killing the corrupt elite, Riddler literally has. So him rooting out the rot, if you will, more directly from Gotham, is getting people's attention. But obviously, Batman can't really let a man keep on doing this, even if it is somewhat rooting out the larger evils who are draining the city and its people of life. So obviously some people, kind of just like in Joker in a weird sense, are just like, yeah, let this guy be, he's doing the right thing, even if it is a bit wrong. That is when, guys, we hear the line, and I believe it's an alternate take of the line from what we heard in the first DC Fandom trailer, "You're a part of this too," as we get the arresting scene at the beginning of the previous main trailer of Edward Nashton, and I love how we get a slightly extended look of this, of how Batman is outside looking in, like he has to see it for himself. This leads to that interrogation scene from the main trailer, in where it's kind of like Seven, in the sense where we had the murderer, the serial killer, allow himself to be caught. He wanted to be brought in, and I believe Riddler does this because he also has something bigger, and it's probably after the flooding of Gotham as well, because that's maybe why Batman punches the screen, is like, what have you done? But it's also like, what have you yet to do? I'm very intrigued about that part, because Riddler wouldn't want to come face to face unless he wanted that to happen. Like, literally. It's all a part of the plan. I really love the continuation of this line, though, and where Bruce says, "How am I part of this?" And then Riddler replies, "Oh, you're really not as smart as I thought you were, Bruce Wayne." Now, he says this to him because, to the Riddler, as I've been over in prior videos, the corruption in this city is so apparent. Obviously, it's apparent to Bruce. That's not really what he's on about, but it's just more that Bruce has his blinders up when it comes to his own family's involvement in that. The Waynes are pivotal people and were a big part of Gotham in general. So whether it's large involvement or not, the Waynes have had some, as I like to say, a toe or two dipped in the paddling pool of Gotham's corruption, or at the very least contributed in a way to the current status, according to the Riddler, of its cesspool aspect to it. So for him, Bruce, to not realize this to the Riddler, and especially with Bruce calling Alfred out as a liar in a few moments' time in the trailer, it's as I thought, that there would be some kind of revelation for Bruce that he's pretty disgusted in. And then he talks to Alfred about it, and Riddler just thinks, oh man, I really thought you'd be smarter to realize that the Waynes, the rich-ass billionaire Waynes, if you will, you really didn't think that they were a part of this too? And also just between this line, I love that shot of Bruce Wayne arriving up on the floor of likely Wayne Tower as the elevator doors open. He seems, well, pretty much like he's just been through a lot. I'm fairly confident that where these elevator doors are opening is him likely arriving to the penthouse in Wayne Tower, as in this iteration, for those who do not know, Wayne Manor was made an orphanage and Bruce stays in Wayne Tower, which also makes sense because it's right in the heart of Gotham. He's there. He doesn't need to go all the way from Wayne Manor, and Wayne Manor being an orphanage has a huge factor in this main plot, with Riddler likely having been raised there as an orphan before whatever happened and whatever went to shit. We then see Jim Gordon and Batman, detective style yet again with their flashlights, very noir at the same time, go around the halls of what I believe is Wayne Manor, or should I say turned G-O on that photo you're probably seeing on screen, Gotham Orphanage, which was Wayne Manor, leading them to the door which has paint on it saying where it all began. And again, this pertains to the Japanese trailer in terms of where it all began is likely Wayne Manor. And if we use the knowledge of knowing that Wayne Manor was turned into an orphanage and that international trailer, we see a bunch of orphans having a photograph taken with the Waynes and a mini Bruce Wayne there, of which a mini Edward Nashton, aka the Riddler, was looking over at the Waynes. Well, you can kind of just put the pieces of the puzzle together yourself. And over this, guys, I'm surprised that they included this, but maybe, you know, at the end of the day, there's still a lot to be seen with how the conversation unfolds, the exact details to it, but we hear Bruce's disgust, saying that all these years you lied to me, Alfred. And then we get this shot from under Alfred's face of him kind of closing his eyes as if he's just received a line from Bruce which kind of hit him in the face. Like, obviously not literally, but emotionally, just kind of like sinks. Again, I've predicted there'd be a moment like this, just like a lot of you have, likened to that of Batman Telltale, of where Alfred was keeping a secret about the Waynes there too. Batman learns about it, he storms in Batman Telltale to kind of just scream at Alfred. Yet again, the secret wasn't kept in a malicious way. It was kind of probably, and the same way in this, to protect the Waynes' name, or whatever they did, they kind of had to do and couldn't not do it. They weren't bad people, but yet it can still be seen as bad, and he just didn't want to put that on Bruce. It's going to be very nuanced, I feel, and probably Andy Serkis's Alfred wanted to just spare him of those details, yet it comes back to bite him when the Riddler reveals that you're a part of this too, and obviously that pertains to the Wayne name. Not literally Bruce being a part of it, but the Wayne aspect of his family being a part of this too. We then hear an audio line from Alfred over some other clips of him saying that we all have our scars, Bruce, you're still a Wayne. I do want to still emphasize though, these audio lines are likely taken from various different sentences from different segments of dialogue from the movie, if you know what I mean. It's not necessarily one cohesive sentence, but the trailer just still wants to get that message across in that moment, so it still works. Such as, you're still a Wayne, that line he then says after that, looking at this Wayne logo on this pin. Now, this will be very important for Bruce to not disregard the family name and legacy moving forward from this revelation of learning that the Waynes probably had some hand in contributing to why the Riddler even became the Riddler with the state of the city. But going back to the family name part of this, Bruce will probably feel like he wants to kind of disregard it, but by some point in the film likely realize that he doesn't have to kind of take on the sins of his father or the Wayne name. It will likely go in a direction of Bruce embracing the Wayne name throughout the next few years and the next few movies, and just somewhat contrasting the beginning of the trailer where Bella comes to Bruce saying that his family has a history of helping. He, in the future films, or from this moment, maybe even by the end of the movie, will go from recluse to more of a public figure and making public appearances and making the Wayne name good. Even if it was already viewed publicly as good, at least in Bruce's psychology and for his own mental knowledge, he will do good things, asserting good for Gotham City in the Wayne name to actually make sure that the Waynes being viewed as philanthropists or whatever for Gotham wasn't just for optics. He's actually going to do good things, and instead of just tossing it away after learning this revelation, no, he's going to actually make sure he does some things, and this will be encouraged by things like that line at the beginning of this trailer from Bella Real, if you know what I mean. I can really see it going that direction, but I do think at first he might be like, sod the Wayne name, this, that, and the other, but Alfred will be like, you're still a Wayne. We then see Commissioner Pete Savage having a go at Lieutenant James Gordon on the scene of the mayor's death. We can tell this is the same scene, by the way, because he's holding up the same owl card there. He's having a go at him and accuses Batman for possibly even being involved in this. Now, Gordon says that, oh no, he's not involved, and Savage replies, how do you know? He's a vigilante, which, to be fair, like, he kind of has a point, like, how do you know Gordon? But Gordon, by this point, has already worked with Batman. Since we are in year 2, this isn't an origin story, so this rapport between Gordon and Batman will already likely have been built by the starting point of the movie. But the message that this brings across to fans by it being featured in the trailer, I believe, especially with this extended shot of what we've seen from the first DC Fandom trailer coming up next, in where Batman is grappling out of what is likely a GCPD precinct, is that probably Pete Savage is the one who will give the order for the cops to open fire on the Batman that leads him to go up to the roof and kind of wingsuit his way off. I do want to point out as well that when Batman is grappling up through what I believe is the precinct away from all those GCPD cops, that the grapple hook does indeed deploy from his suit. That's the thing that whammies out when he's in front of Oswald there. So that's another cool detail to note in how the grapple hook does deploy there, meaning that maybe on the front side of his forearm there, that those might be grapple hooks for ammo for the grapple gun. Up next in the trailer, we get a riddle from the Riddler immediately after District Attorney Gil Colson blows through the doors of the mayor's funeral, saying it can be cruel, poetic, or blind, but when it's denied, it's the violence you may find. We hear Batman say justice. The answer is justice, as he draws closer to try and save the terrified Gil Colson, but at the same time, I do think it's likely that this is just one of a few riddles that the Batman has to answer correctly, and we know that one of them might not get answered correctly because we know from one of the other, well, all of the other trailers, I think, that Batman gets blown back. So does Gil Colson, meaning that the bomb around his neck goes bye-bye to the head. So yeah, that's just one riddle you got right, Batman, but you might not get all of them right. Well, after this, guys, we actually see the explosion from the previous trailers, but what is actually interesting here is that it's turned into multiple explosions right on the edge of Gotham's waterfront, which allows for the fan theory to be true about mass flooding in Gotham, which leads to the scene of where Batman lights up that flare, leading people out of the streets of Gotham that are now flooded, pertaining to the tease of the symbol of hope that Batman will provide for Gotham as his vigilante career unfolds. A symbol of hope for the people, but a symbol of fear for the Gotham's criminal underworld. Honestly, the devastation of this flooding is so much more worse than what I thought it would be. I thought it was maybe one big-ass explosion that would break that kind of city wall on the edge of the water that would let it through, but no, multiple, like Riddler is causing damage. Now, at the end of the trailer, we get some extended scenes of when in the other trailer, Selina was kind of marching towards something in the club, of which I believe is the Iceberg Lounge Club. We saw her in that kind of short wig, but now we've got an extended look at that in where we also see that Bruce is there in incognito mode or drifter mode as well. And I'm wondering if he's there incognito to try and stop Selina from whatever she planned to do, perhaps pertaining to the don't throw away your lifeline that we heard earlier. And right at the end of the trailer, and I do think this could be the climax of the film, in where this big structure starts to fracture, causing the Batman to burst through in the other trailer shots. And it's that same shot because you can see the glass shards coming down as if it was raining glass. Now notice how there's a bunch of what seems to be civilians there too underneath the structure who might be getting shards of glass flying at them like rain. And this is where he lands on that rail as seen in the other trailers as well. And it seems as though Catwoman and Batman will be taking out multiple Riddler henchmen, of which it's important to notice they are all dressed up exactly like the Riddler to fool Batman into wondering which one is really Edward Nashton. I think it's kind of needless to say how Batman's moves here are really quick and insane. I honestly can't wait to see this scene unfold, and we know that Bruce might go a bit too far because, as I mentioned earlier, in the other trailers, Selina even gets a bit shocked with how Bruce is repeatedly punching one of the henchmen or the Riddler, but could be a henchman. And I absolutely love how Batman is using one of their own guns to basically golf club swing and disarm their other guns away from the henchmen to disarm them. I think that is also just, the last part of the trailer I wanted to discuss. So this has been one big blabber sesh. I do apologize if it's too long for some, but I like to go ham with these breakdowns, and I'm expecting even more teasers than this. This is the Bat and the Cat. That could be speaking to the larger title of how some other title of trailers could be featuring the detective and, I don't know, the Bat. I don't know, they're technically both detectives, Gordon and Batman. But you know what I mean? We could get more trailers featuring other duos or dynamics, and there would most certainly not only be a dynamic between Selina and Bruce or Batman, but Batman and Gordon. But guys, I've been going on long enough, so I would love to know what you thought of this trailer, what you thought of my commentary on it. Did I give you extra ideas to add to your theories or whatnot? Did I miss something out? Let me know down in the comments below. But give this video a like if you did enjoy it. I really appreciate that. Do subscribe if you are still here. If you're still here and you're new and you enjoyed this, hey, subscribe. There's more videos like this coming. As always, the links are in the top pinned comment, not the description box, but in the top pinned comment. Follow me on Twitter, join my Discord server, and talk about the Batman with me and other like-minded fans. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you fellow Bat family in the next video. Goodbye.